at the top of UKIP. Paul Nuttall became the party's third leader of the year last November. So now he's had Christmas to have a mull over things and he's decided to stick with the job. How is he preparing the party for the challenges of 2017? In a moment, we'll be asking him. But before that, let's remind ourselves how he got the role.
A little bit independent with your smile. A little bit independent.
We have achieved so much in such little time. We forced the referendum and you helped to win it. Brexit is yours.
Well, after just 18 days in charge, it's being reported tonight that the UKIP leader, Diane James, is set to stand down.
I'm standing in this election as the unity candidate, the candidate who wants to let bygones be bygones.
I'm going to break in because UKIP has a new leader. We've already announced it. Its second new leader in just a few months. It's Paul Nuttall.
The members have spoken. The result is more than decisive. My call for unity has now received the biggest mandate in the history of our party.
And Paul Nuttall joins me now. Welcome to the Daily Politics. Now, you said you want UKIP to be the guard dogs of Brexit. How do you plan on stopping any backsliding from Theresa May this year, given you only have one MP and a rapidly diminishing team of MEPs?
Well, look, UKIP has to remain an electorally viable force. I mean, if UKIP begins to fall in the polls, if UKIP isn't doing well in elections, then there's no sort of impetus for the government to hold to their word. And let's be clear, what people voted for on June the 23rd was to control our own borders, to control our own finances, and indeed to be able to sign free trade deals all over the globe. If we stay in the single market, we can do none of those things.
But how are you going to stop her backsliding?
Exactly.
I mean, she may not backslide, but how are you going to stop her if you think she is?
Well, put it this way. You know, we forced David Cameron into giving the referendum in the first place by being strong electorally. We intend to ensure that Theresa May doesn't backslide by doing the same thing. And that's why it's important that I came into this role. That's why I decided to stand, because UKIP is more important now than ever before.
Do you worry, though, that forever being on the back of Theresa May and her government over Brexit, that actually your pressure, trying to outflank on the right, you could see it in that way, will actually end up with the government getting a worse deal for the UK?
No, I think they'll get the best deal, because Britain will be able to look into this century confident, able to sign its own trade deals, able to protect its own borders, not paying a membership fee into the European Union and not having to comply with EU regulations and directives. I think that means a strong, confident, free and democratic UK.
I mean, do you agree that it was UKIP that actually forced David Cameron to call that referendum?
No, of course not. I mean, Paul knows that the Conservative Party has a long history of opposing the single currency, talking about William Hague, talking about us being locked in a burning building without a key to get out of it. Paul's problem, and I've got a lot of time for Paul, he's a lovely man, is unity. Diane James lasted about, 5 minutes?
18 days.
Poor old Stephen Wolfe got whacked in more ways than one.
And now neither of them are in the party.
Neither of them are in the party. Your biggest donor doesn't think any of the candidates were up to scratch. And, Nigel Farage is still sort of headline news.
Right.
That picture almost looks as good as Trump.
Your leadership could be undermined by the fact that the party's falling apart at the seams.
No, it's not falling apart. In fact, since I've taken over, we've gone up in the polls. Membership has risen for the first time in a year, and we've finished second in a by-election. The party's coming together now in a way it hasn't for about the past 2 years.
Is that right?
The problem that we've had in UKIP was simply this. The designation process for the referendum basically created a cancer in the party. It split the party in two.
And you think you've fleshed that out?
I've fleshed all that out.
So no further defections?
To us, there may well be defections.
No, from UKIP to the Conservative Party, you're confident about that?
Absolutely.
Who's your leader in the group in the Welsh Assembly?
Neil Hamilton.
Right, is Neil Hamilton, even though Nathan Gill was appointed?
Nathan Gill isn't an Assembly member at this present moment in time for UKIP, so he can't be the leader.
So it is Neil Hamilton. That's fine.
Absolutely.
That's the leader in Wales. OK, would it be a failure of your leadership if anybody else does defect from UKIP?
I would be amazed if anyone defected.
No, I understand that, but would it be a failure of your leadership?
Well, I think it would be a failure of unity, and I would be very disappointed, as I always am when people leave this party. But look, we've put a smile back on everybody's face. Myself and Peter Whittle, my deputy, are changing how this party behaves, and we're looking forward to a successful 2017.
As you say, after the referendum, there seemed to be, to use your words, a cancer in the party. There seemed to be infighting as the party sort of fought it out. And that leads people to believe that UKIP can no longer be a single-issue party.
Yes.
So let's look at some of the ideas that you've had. No doubt you've been thinking about it over Christmas, a distinctive change in UKIP policy. What are your distinctive ideas other than Brexit?
Well, firstly, if you look at our last manifesto in 2015, it was regarded by many of the political commentariat to be the best manifesto on offer. In fact, for the first time in the history of British politics, our manifesto was fully costed by an independent economic think tank.
All right, well, let's have a look at it.
But hang on, before we move on to that, we will be fleshing out policies within the next couple of months. I've only been in the job 6 weeks.
Sure.
Look, our spring conference is on February the 16th and 17th in Bolton. There'll be big policy announcements.
Right, but you said you want to challenge Labour in its northern strongholds. So what are your policies to challenge Labour in those strongholds? What are you going to say on workers' rights?
Well, hang on. Well, firstly, workers' rights will be protected, but...
All workers' rights.
Hang on. We're going to flesh out these policies and we're going to make big announcements at Spring Conference. What we will continue to do, Joe, is we will continue to talk about the issues that matter to working-class people.
Which
on
are?
Doorsteps. Which are, I'll tell you what they are, because I do a lot of this. It's immigration. They want a fair but firm immigration policy because wages have been driven down over the past 10 years by uncontrolled and unfettered immigration. They are law and order because they feel as if there's no deterrent in society because British working class people are the most likely to be the victims of crime. It's about putting British people first, whether that's in the job market or indeed ensuring that British
taxpayers... Do you support the rail union strikes at the moment?
In this country? Well, look, I think trade unions have done a great job for workers' rights at the moment.
Do you support the strikes?
In a way, I think there is... But there's different strikes going on, actually, Joe.
All right, well, let's take the ones on Southern but there are RMT strikes across the board. I mean, if you are supporting workers' rights and you want to challenge Labour in the northern strongholds, it's a straightforward question, do you support the strikes?
I don't agree with the strike on Southern Rail.
Right.
Because you've already got the union leader who agreed that trains without ticket collectors were not a problem before Christmas and now suddenly thinks they are a problem.
Do you still support the triple lock on pensions?
Yes, I do.
Right. On the economy, would you like to see increased spending on capital projects?
Yes, I would.
Right. How much? How much would you spend?
Well, I'm not going to give you a figure. I'm not going to give a figure right now. We are going to flesh all these kind of things out. There'll be big announcements, as I said, at the Spring Conference. But what we will continue to do is we will continue to talk about the things which matter to working people, and we will replace the Labour Party, I genuinely believe, as the patriotic voice of working people.
Right. Well, what do you say to that?
Well, I think you've got a long way to go to do that. But I think, look, what will become clear, and this is a challenge, you know, for the Labour Party to make sure that we fill this space just as much. But I think what will become clear as Brexit becomes a reality, and many of people in Manchester and the north of England who voted for Britain to leave the EU will still feel disaffected even once we have left the European Union.
And will they look to UKIP rather than to Labour?
No, I don't think they will look to UKIP because many of the concerns that they have about their changing communities, loss of control within their communities, private rented sector, taking hold, the loss of the high streets. UKIP, with their free market agenda, with their agenda to privatise the NHS, will do nothing to secure those communities. And I think that, Paul, and I wish him well, he's a good northerner, but I think that he will fall foul of the fact that he's got nothing to say to communities like mine in Manchester once we get over this Brexit issue.
Well, respond to that.
Oh, I think we will. I think you've got a Labour Party.
What's your benchmark going to be, though?
Hang on. You've got a Labour Party now which is led by a guy who seems to be obsessed with the issues that swirl around the Islington dinner party. You know, climate change, fair trade, Palestine, all that kind of stuff. These aren't the issues that matter to people in your constituency or my constituency of Bootle.
Right.
As I say,
has he got a point there?
Well, in my constituency, in my part of the world...
But what about Jeremy Corbyn not having resonance in your part of the world?
No, and there's definitely some truth to that. That's part of the reason we're we're having the conversations within the Labour Party that we are having. But, you know, my constituents see me, they see a strong Labour council in Manchester, they see renaissance in parts of the north, but they want to see that spreading further. They want to see their communities flourishing once again and not being in decline. And I think that strong Labour voices in the north will offer that, not Paul.
It's a big year for elections across Europe, as you know, in France and Germany. Will you be campaigning alongside Marine Le Pen in the French elections?
No, this leader of UKIP will not be involving himself in any foreign elections.
Right, and so there'll be no campaigning alongside Marine Le Pen. I mean, she said on the topic of immigration and the European Union, not a hair's breadth of difference between what UKIP thinks and what the National Front thinks.
No.
Let's be truthful.
Not an issue, not going to happen.
You're not going to go there.
Absolutely, I'm more focused on council elections in this country.
And what about your MEP? And what about your MEPs?
They won't be either.
Right, they won't be. Is that going to be an instruction coming out from you as the leader of UKIP? Rightly or wrongly to say, we're not going to have any campaigning alongside.
I've just given it on this show.
Right.
Ain't going to happen.
Right, so you are going to tell them?
Yep.
All right, Paul Nuttall, thank you very much. So, West